Welcome back to Rupture Tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and get ready for another story you won't forget. Let's dive back to the story. Emily Parker pressed her forehead against the cold airplane window as London's skyline glimmered faintly below. Her eyes were heavy from endless nights spent juggling work and motherhood, her body exhausted from years of fighting alone. Little Oliver snuggled against her chest, his tiny hand gripping her cardigan as though she were the only safe place left in the world. The hum of the aircraft blended with her heartbeat until she drifted into a deep, weary sleep. When she stirred, her cheek rested gently against the shoulder of the man beside her, a tall stranger with calm gray eyes and quiet confidence. To her shock, he was holding Oliver, soothing him softly after the boy had begun to fuss mid-flight. "I'm so sorry," Emily whispered, embarrassed. But the man, Nathan Cole, only smiled faintly. "He's a strong little chap," he said, his voice smooth like velvet. As the plane landed, Nathan helped her carry the baby bag down the narrow aisle. Emily tried to refuse, embarrassed by her own vulnerability, but Nathan insisted with a polite charm that was neither flirtatious nor forceful. Outside Heathrow, she thanked him quickly before hurrying off into the London drizzle. Nathan watched her go, her tired figure disappearing into the crowd. He didn't know why her presence lingered in his mind, but something about the woman with the tear-stained eyes felt profoundly familiar. The following morning, Emily woke up to the sound of Oliver's laughter and the smell of burnt toast in her small flat in Peckham. Her life was simple, messy, but peaceful. She was used to solitude, used to finding joy in the smallest things. She never expected the man from the plane to reappear. But when her best friend Leah showed her an article on her phone titled "Reclusive Billionaire Nathan Cole Spotted on Commercial Flight," Emily froze. The blurry image showed him, unmistakably, sitting beside her. Leah laughed in disbelief. "You slept on a billionaire's shoulder, Emily shook her head, dismissing it as an impossible coincidence. "That man probably forgot I exist," she said, pouring herself another cup of tea. Yet, deep down, her heart betrayed her words. She remembered his kindness, the warmth of his eyes, the way he held her son with such unexpected tenderness. Meanwhile, across London's financial district, Nathan was in his office at Cole Enterprises, staring absent-mindedly at the rain streaking his window. He couldn't focus on numbers or deals. His thoughts kept wandering back to the exhausted woman and the child on the plane. "Find her," he told his assistant impulsively. The assistant blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. "Sir," Nathan sighed. "The woman from Heathrow. I'd like to thank her for reminding me what humility looks like." It was an unusual request, but Nathan Cole was not a man to be questioned. 3 days later, Emily received an unexpected call. "Miss Parker? This is Charlotte from Cole Enterprises. Mr. Cole would like to invite you to lunch." She thought it was a prank, but when she arrived at a quiet Mayfair restaurant and saw Nathan waiting, impeccably dressed, his usual stoicism softened by a polite smile, she realized it was real. "You didn't have to do this," she said, sitting across from him. "I just wanted to say thank you," Nathan replied. "You reminded me that kindness still exists in the world." Their conversation flowed naturally, bridging two worlds that should never have met. Emily spoke about balancing motherhood and exhaustion. Nathan listened, truly listened, something no one had done for her in years. Over dessert, Nathan asked if he could see her again, not as an obligation, but as a friend. Emily hesitated. She knew his world was full of cameras, expectations, and scrutiny. But Oliver's laughter as Nathan made faces across the table broke her resistance. "One more lunch," she said softly, and Nathan's eyes lit up with rare warmth. For the first time since a divorce, Emily walked home that evening with something fragile yet undeniable: hope. Their next meeting didn't stay private. A journalist caught a photo of Nathan holding Oliver outside a cafe, and within hours, tabloids exploded. Who is the woman capturing London's most eligible billionaire? Emily's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Colleagues whispered. Even her landlord asked nosy questions. She wanted to disappear, but Nathan insisted on protecting her. "Ignore them," he said calmly, his voice steady over the chaos. "They thrive on reaction." Yet Emily couldn't ignore the stares or the hateful online comments calling her a gold digger, a single mom chasing wealth. Her heart ached not for herself, but for Oliver. She didn't want him to grow up as a headline. Nathan, however, had lived with the press long enough to know their games. He made a public statement that only fueled curiosity. She's someone I admire deeply. Suddenly, the quiet woman became a mystery London couldn't stop talking about. At home, Emily broke down in tears, terrified that she had ruined her own fragile peace. Nathan showed up unannounced that night, drenched from rain, holding flowers and an apology. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he whispered. "Then why do I feel safe when you're here?" she confessed. It was the first night they didn't part as strangers. It didn't take long for the past to come knocking. Victoria Hayes, Nathan's former fiancée and the daughter of a media magnate, stormed into his office unannounced. "You're dating her?" she demanded. Nathan kept his composure. "Her name is Emily," he said simply. "And yes, I am." Victoria's lips curled into a cold smile. "You've lost your mind. She'll drag you down, Nathan. A single mother with nothing? You think society will forgive that?" Her words hit where it hurt, not for Nathan, but for Emily, who overheard everything as she arrived unexpectedly at the building. The humiliation stung like acid. Instead of reacting, Emily quietly left. That night, Nathan called her repeatedly, but she didn't answer. She packed Oliver's things and decided to stay with Leah until things cooled down. Her heart told her to run. Her soul whispered to stay. She had fallen for him, but she'd lived long enough to know that love doesn't always mean safety. Nathan, however, wasn't giving up. By morning, every newspaper headline had changed again, not because of Victoria's words, but because of Nathan's new public declaration. "Judge her if you must. I won't." London had never seen him so human. Just as the media storm began to calm, Emily's past reappeared in the cruelest way possible. Ryan Parker, her ex-husband, returned. The man who had abandoned her when Oliver was barely one. Now wore a suit, carried confidence, and claimed he wanted to make things right. His real motive became clear when he demanded full custody of Oliver, claiming Emily's relationship with Nathan made her an unfit mother, exposed to publicity and chaos. Emily was shattered. The court summons arrived like a dagger. She called Nathan in tears, her voice trembling. "He's taking me to court, Nathan. He's saying I'm unfit." Nathan's jaw tightened, anger flickering beneath his calm demeanor. "He won't win," he promised. He hired the best legal team in London. But Emily's fear wasn't legal, it was emotional. Facing Ryan meant reopening wounds she had buried long ago. The manipulation, the abandonment, the nights Oliver cried for a father who never came. Nathan's presence was her only anchor. Late that night, he took her hand and said softly, "You're not alone anymore, Emily." For the first time in years, she believed him. The courtroom became a battlefield of reputations and half-truths. Ryan's lawyer painted Emily as unstable, claiming she exposed Oliver to fame and danger through a relationship with Nathan. Tabloids spun every hearing into entertainment. But Nathan refused to let her fall apart. Each day, he sat quietly behind her in court, his gaze unwavering. When Ryan's lawyer questioned Nathan directly, asking if Emily was a project for his hero complex, Nathan's response silenced the room. "She doesn't need saving," he said firmly. "She just needed to be seen, and I saw her." The crowd gasped, but Emily's tears spoke louder than applause. That night, Nathan found her outside the courthouse, trembling. "Why did you say that?" she whispered. "Because it's true," he said. "I saw you, not the rumors, not the pain. Just you." Their embrace wasn't romantic that night. It was survival. Together, they faced the storm, bound by something stronger than attraction, loyalty. Weeks turned into months of testimonies and media frenzy until the day of judgment arrived. Emily could barely breathe as the judge read the decision. Primary custody of Oliver Parker will remain with his mother. Her knees nearly gave way, but Nathan's steady hand caught her. Tears streamed down her cheeks as relief washed over her like rain after drought. Ryan left the courtroom in fury, his pride shattered. Outside, reporters shouted questions, but Nathan shielded Emily and Oliver with his coat, whispering, "It's over." That evening, Emily invited Nathan to her small flat, a quiet victory celebration with homemade pasta and laughter. Oliver climbed onto Nathan's lap, babbling happily. "He's calling you, da-da," Emily said softly, eyes wide. Nathan froze, emotion flickering across his usually stoic face. "If you'll let me," he whispered, "I'll earn that title." Emily smiled, tears of gratitude in her eyes. For once, love didn't feel like chaos. It felt like home. Months later, Nathan planned something unexpected. He invited Emily to the same cafe where they had their first real conversation. The table was set with white roses, her favorite. As she walked in, holding Oliver's hand, the entire room fell silent. Nathan knelt down, his heart racing but his voice steady. "Emily Parker, you've taught me what love really is, not the kind I read in magazines, but the kind that survives fear, chaos, and gossip. Will you marry me?" The cafe erupted in applause as Emily burst into tears, whispering yes. That night, she stared at the engagement ring, elegant yet modest, much like Nathan himself. "Do you ever wish it had happened differently?" she asked him. Nathan smiled. "No," he said. "Every heartbreak led us here." They toasted quietly to second chances, unaware that life was about to test their love again, not through gossip or courts, but through something far more personal: mortality. One autumn morning, Nathan collapsed during a business meeting. The news spread like wildfire. Billionaire Nathan Cole hospitalized for a heart condition. Emily's world stopped. She rushed to St. Thomas Hospital, holding Oliver tightly as if sheer willpower could heal him. Doctors explained that Nathan had an underlying heart condition he'd kept hidden for years, worsened by stress. For days, Emily refused to leave his side, reading aloud to him as machines beeped softly. "You can't leave us now," she whispered through tears. "You promised." When Nathan finally woke, his first words were, "You didn't run." Emily laughed through her tears. "You're too stubborn to let me." The moment wasn't grand, but it was sacred, a silent vow that love wasn't built on glamour or strength, but on endurance. Outside, autumn leaves fell like blessings from the London sky. Emily kissed his forehead and whispered, "We're going to make it, all of us." Nathan squeezed her hand weakly but smiled. He knew she meant it. Nathan's recovery was long and unpredictable. There were mornings when Emily woke up terrified by the silence beside her, afraid the monitors would start beeping again. But Nathan was a fighter. He began walking again, slowly at first, then with renewed determination. Emily became his shadow, managing his medications, shielding him from the stress of business calls, and filling the sterile hospital room with the smell of homemade soup and laughter. Sometimes she'd catch him staring at her with quiet awe. "What?" she'd ask, smiling. "Just wondering how I got this lucky," he'd reply softly. Yet, deep down, Emily knew luck had little to do with it. Their bond had been forged in fire, betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak, yet still stood unbroken. When Nathan was finally discharged, the press lined the hospital gates. Instead of avoiding them, Nathan walked hand in hand with Emily, facing the flashes head-on. "This is Emily," he told the reporters. "She's not my scandal, she's my future." The moment went viral overnight. For the first time, the media that once mocked Emily now adored her resilience. She didn't care for fame, but that day, she realized something profound. She was no longer just surviving. She was being seen, respected, loved. Returning home wasn't easy. Nathan's mansion in Knightsbridge felt like a museum, elegant but cold. Emily filled it with warmth. Family photos, Oliver's toys, and the scent of lavender candles. Nathan struggled with the idea of slowing down, learning to delegate, and embracing a life not ruled by business calls. "You're not your company," Emily often reminded him. "You're a man who deserves peace." It took him weeks to believe that. She watched him rediscover simple pleasures, morning walks by the Thames, pancakes with Oliver, evenings spent reading rather than negotiating. But their peace was soon tested again. Ryan appeared once more, this time begging for forgiveness. He had lost his job, his pride, and his access to Oliver. "Let me see my son," he pleaded at Emily's doorstep. For a long moment, Emily said nothing. Then calmly, she replied, "You'll see him, as long as you remember he's not your property." It was a moment of closure. Ryan's silence said all. He wasn't here for love, only for redemption. And Emily had already found hers elsewhere. Nathan proposed again, this time not in a cafe, but in the garden of their home, surrounded by fairy lights and the quiet hum of London night traffic. "You once told me I gave you peace," he said, holding her hands. "But you gave me life." Tears glistened in Emily's eyes as she whispered yes. Their wedding was intimate, just family and a few close friends. Emily wore a simple lace gown, Oliver in a tiny tuxedo beside her. As she walked down the aisle, she thought about how far she'd come from that tired woman on the plane. She wasn't a shadow anymore. She was standing in light. When Nathan lifted her veil, his voice trembled. For better, for worse, we've already seen both, he said, and laughter rippled through the guests. The vows weren't perfect. They were honest. Afterward, Nathan knelt and hugged Oliver. "Can I be your daddy now?" he asked softly. The boy grinned and nodded. The guests cheered, but Emily was silent, overwhelmed by gratitude. Her son finally had the father she prayed for, not by blood, but by love. Their marriage made headlines again, and this time it wasn't gossip. It was fascination. The Billionaire and the Single Mother, a modern love story, read one tabloid. Brands wanted interviews. Networks requested documentaries. Nathan refused all of them. "Our love isn't a spectacle," he told Emily. She agreed. Their peace mattered more than publicity. Yet fame has its own gravity, and not everyone respected their privacy. Paparazzi often camped outside their gate. Journalists followed Emily to supermarkets. Through it all, Nathan's security team kept him safe, but Emily's patience thinned. "This isn't what I wanted," she confessed one night. "I just wanted normal." Nathan understood. Without hesitation, he made a decision that stunned London's elite. He stepped down as CEO of Coal Enterprises, naming his deputy as successor. "Money means nothing if it costs me my peace," he told the press. That night, Emily held his face in her hands and whispered, "You just gave me more than any ring ever could." Leaving London's chaos behind, they moved to a quiet coastal town in Cornwall. The house overlooked the sea, with wide windows that let sunlight flood every room. Emily started a small art studio, teaching children to paint, while Nathan began mentoring young entrepreneurs remotely. Oliver ran barefoot along the beach, laughing, free from photographers and noise. "I think this is what heaven feels like," Emily said one evening as they watched the sunset together. Nathan smiled. "No, this is just home." But even in paradise, echoes of the past lingered. Victoria Hayes resurfaced on social media, claiming Emily had stolen her life. The old pain flickered briefly, but Emily didn't respond. She'd learned that silence was stronger than defense. Instead, she painted, a woman standing at a storm's edge, unbroken. When she finished, Nathan hung it in the living room and said, "That's you." She laughed softly. "That's every woman who's ever survived." Months later, Nathan's heart condition worsened. He tried to hide it, but Emily noticed the small winces, the exhaustion after simple walks. When she confronted him, he admitted the truth. "The doctors say I'll need surgery soon," he confessed, trying to stay calm. Emily froze, her fingers trembling as she reached for his hand. "Then we'll face it together," she said. During those weeks of preparation, she prayed more than she ever had, her faith tested by fear and love intertwined. On the morning of the surgery, she kissed his forehead. "Come back to me," she whispered. Hours passed like years until the doctor finally emerged, smiling. He made it. Emily broke down in tears. When Nathan woke, the first thing he asked was, "Did you wait?" She nodded, laughing and crying all at once. Always. It became their new promise. Not till death do us part, but until life ends, we hold on. Years passed gently. Emily's art studio flourished, becoming a haven for single mothers and struggling children. She used her fame not for luxury, but for purpose. Nathan often joked that she was more famous than he ever was. Oliver grew into a confident boy, kind and protective, often sketching beside his mother. One afternoon he asked, "Mom, do you ever miss London?" Emily smiled. "No, love. We have everything we need right here." That night, as the sea roared softly outside, she reflected on how life had turned her pain into purpose. She had once been abandoned with nothing but hope. Now she was a wife, a mother, a woman loved beyond measure. Nathan joined her on the porch, placing a blanket over her shoulders. "You gave us a life worth living," he murmured. "You saved me," she corrected. "We saved each other," he said, and for once, both were right. Unexpectedly, one summer evening, Emily received a letter from Ryan. He was terminally ill and wanted to see Oliver one last time. After days of prayer, she agreed. Nathan supported her, though she saw the hesitation in his eyes. When they met Ryan at the hospital, he was a shadow of the arrogant man she once knew. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," he said weakly. Emily held his hand and replied, "Forgiveness isn't for you, it's for me." Oliver, now a teenager, stood silently before saying, "I forgive you, too." When Ryan passed a week later, Emily didn't cry from grief but from closure. She realized that forgiveness had freed her heart completely. Nathan kissed her forehead that night and said, "Now your past can finally rest." And for the first time, it truly did. Years melted into memories. Nathan and Emily grew older together, still walking the beaches hand in hand. Oliver went on to study architecture, inspired by his stepfather's determination and his mother's creativity. During one Christmas dinner, he stood and toasted them. "You taught me what love looks like, not perfect, but persistent." Nathan laughed softly. Persistent, indeed. Emily reached for his hand, squeezing it as if time could be paused in that single gesture. In that warmth, she realized something profound. Life had given her everything it once took away: love, peace, and belonging. And though the world once mocked her, her story had become a beacon for others. She wasn't the woman with luggage thrown out anymore. She was the woman who rebuilt her home from ashes. On a bright spring morning, years after that fateful flight, Emily and Nathan sat by the window overlooking the sea. Oliver visited often, now with children of his own. Nathan's health was fragile, but his spirit was as sharp as ever. Emily rested her head on his shoulder, just as she had done all those years ago on the plane. "Do you ever think about how it all began?" she asked softly. Nathan chuckled. A tired woman fell asleep on a stranger's shoulder, and destiny smiled. As gulls soar above the cliffs, Emily closed her eyes, listening to the waves and the heartbeat beside her, steady, alive. "I thought I lost everything once," she whispered, "but it was only making room for you." Nathan kissed her hair. "You didn't fall on my shoulder, Emily. You fell into my life." The sun dipped low, painting their world gold. And there, wrapped in quiet eternity, they found what they'd been searching for all along: peace, family, and love that outlived every storm. That's the end of the story. What did you learn about the story? Please leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories. Thanks for watching.